वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीं भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः शृण्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So in the introduction to this 7th chapter we saw that the absolute truth in Vedanta we call as Brahman, and that is infinite, nameless, formless, attributeless, and that is the one absolute truth. There are no divisions in that. To connect to that absolute truth is very difficult because it doesn't have any name, form, attribute. And also by itself it being changeless, it actually doesn't create anything. Because infinity cannot change. Anything that changes is finite, will perish. And yet we see that there is a creation which is there in front of us. It cannot come from nothing. So if the infinite cause does not create, and if from nothing creation cannot come, can we just close that? Or tell them to go out and talk, or just close that. So if the infinite does not create, and if the creation cannot come out of nothing, then how does the creation come about? So the understanding is that in that infinite, being infinite, there is one power called Maya, and using that power of Maya, the same infinite absolute truth assumes the role of Ishwar. Like how each of us have different powers within us, they are dormant within us. Right now I am invoking the power of speaking within me, so I am a speaker. And you are invoking the power of listening, so you are the listener. In the same way, invoking the power, somebody is a doctor, somebody is a policeman, somebody is a professional. When they invoke that role within themselves, then they start performing the appropriate duties associated with that role. In the same way, in that absolute truth, there is a power to create. And using that power called Maya, the role is assumed of Ishwar. So we always say Brahman plus Maya is equal to Ishwar. Ishwar is what we typically call as God, Creator. And how does that God create? Cannot create from something else. Because Ishwar also is infinite. Ishwar, it is not that Ishwar is finite. So in infinite there is nothing which is excluded. It is not like a potter creating pot using mud. where potter is separate, mud is separate, wheel is separate. So that's a finite creation. In case of the creation that we see, it is infinite all around us, everywhere, and there is no boundaries in this creation. So the creation happens not as a pot is produced, not as a curd or a milk becomes modified and becomes curd. It is not that infinite modifies to become the creation. So the theory of Vedanta is that not getting affected by anything, the same infinite truth appears as this whole creation. Just like the waker remaining unaffected creates the whole dream world. Now the entire dream world is created by the waker, assuming an identity called the dreamer, who is the creator of the whole dream world. And how did that dream world come about? From the dreamer's mind only. So how a spider creates a web from itself, or how the dreamer creates the dream from his own self. So we say that this whole creation is nothing but the appearance of the Lord. So God did not create the creation and remain separate. God appears as this whole creation. So the knowledge of this is called Jnana, and the experience of this reality, that God is my true nature, that infinite truth is my true nature, that is called Vijnana. And hence we have this chapter is called as Jnana Vijnana Yoga. So let us see now what the Lord says in this chapter. As I had said yesterday also, that the 6th chapter last verse is the seed for this chapter. That of all different yogis who are meditating, the one who considers the Lord as the supreme and who meditates upon Him in his heart, as residing in his heart, that yogi, Bhagavan says, is the best. So that now he is explaining that who is this Lord, where is He, how to realize Him, what is devotion for this Lord, all this. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Jnasyasi Tachrunu. So the Lord here says, Mai Asaktamana Partha. One who is completely emotionally, who loves me completely. Mai Asaktamana Partha. Partha means one who is a seeker of the Lord. Yogam Yunjan Madashraya. And through the yoga he is trying to unite with that Lord whom he loves wholeheartedly, and also Madashraya, on whom he depends totally. Asamshayam Samagram Mam. Without any doubt, how will he come to know me completely as in my true nature? Yatha Jnasyasi. How will he know me? Tachrunu. You listen to that. So he says, listen to that knowledge which tells you that how does a yogi who is depending on me emotionally, who is totally surrendered unto me, that person, when he is practicing yoga, how will this person come to know me as I am in my complete nature? That is what he is going to describe now. So two aspects he says here, Mad Mai Asakta and Mad Ashraya. Asakta here is not in the meaning of attachment, but here it means wholeheartedly who loves me. And yesterday we saw that why devotion is such an important aspect in one's life. That when there is devotion in life, then the complete surrender of the ego happens, humility comes about in one's life. That when I understand that there is a higher reality which is the cause of this whole universe, and because of which everything is functioning in such a beautiful system, when I understand the entire mechanism, that how everything is functioning so beautifully, there has to be some intelligent cause behind it. So when I understand this logically, but I need to connect to that reality. Logically, I may say it is infinite reality, but the connection does not happen at the emotion level. Our difficulty in spiritual life is the emotion doesn't get anchored. In any aspect of higher way of living, that is the main issue. I may know that anger is not good for me, but at emotional level, I have no control over anger. I may know that I should be able to love everybody, but at emotional level, I am not able to love everybody. I may also know that there is one God or there is one cause of the universe, but emotional level, there is no feeling for that cause. So when there is no feeling, the connection is not complete. Wherever these two aspects come together in our life, feeling and thinking, when they get integrated, that experience is complete. We don't have difficulties in those aspects. Where these two get separated, then we have difficulty. Only feeling we have for somebody, but we don't think properly. That's how we get attached. And only thinking logically, but no feeling for it at all. Motivation doesn't come. It just remains an intellectual concept or a theory or something to just understand, but it doesn't transform me. But when these two come together, that's why they say do what you love and love what you do, to feel happy. Why? Because there is a feeling, and then there is also the intellectual clarity that this is what I am made for, and then both have come together, one is happy. Where I feel very clearly that anger is not good, and I decide that yes, I need to drop it, and I should feel that, not just intellectually know that anger is not good, then it will go. So feeling and thinking must come together. Now, as far as the truth is concerned, it is the same thing here. That why do I not feel for the Lord? A devotee feels for the Lord, and somebody else doesn't feel for the Lord. That's why for them the quest remains very intellectual, and always there is a doubt. I don't know whether God is there or not there. Even if intellectually I am convinced that God is there, at feeling level I have no experience, hence there is always a doubt. So both these should come together. So here he says that Mai asakta mana partha. When I know that I love the Lord completely, why do I love the Lord? You know this question many times when we ask, why should I love God? Do we ask this question? Does any child ask the question, why should I love my parent? Nobody asks that question. If a child asks that question, it will look ridiculous. Love for the parent is very natural. But the same question we ask for God. Why should I love God? But there is a creator who created all of us, and every minute that presence of the creator can be felt if I just open my mind to it. I may say that it is all science, and I have understood why the heart beats and how the heart pumps blood and how the brain gives signals and then the whole thing functions, and all that one can say. But it has only the understanding of the system does not mean that there is no creator of the system. In fact, it should be the other way. Because I understand the system, I should be able to appreciate the glory and the beauty of that creator. Just because I know that how this whole iPhone functions and each and everything I can even remove it and assemble it, does it mean that there is no creator of the iPhone? No. So knowledge today is taking us away from connecting to the higher reality. And that higher reality is me. My own true nature. I have forgotten that. That's the beauty. So when I understand, when the knowledge is there about the Creator, for somebody who is intellectual, the knowledge of the existence of a truth or existence of a Creator will automatically bring forth humility and devotion. Otherwise that knowledge is not complete. It is incomplete. And for somebody who is a deep devotee, that devotion will bring about knowledge of that truth or the Creator. So either ways one can start, but it will lead to the other one. And both when they come together, here is a person who loves the Lord wholeheartedly. Mai asakta mana partha, he says here. And also if we think about it, everybody in the world loves us because of something or the other. Even if we say that no, they want nothing from me, can their love be unconditional? No. But the love of the Lord doesn't expect me to change at all. Love of the Lord is unconditional no matter who I am, how I am. So if I am open to understanding all these, then he says here that Mai asakta mana partha. For the devotee loves the Lord, and because he loves the Lord or she loves the Lord, one loves everything else. Because the same Lord pervades everyone. So Mai asakta mana partha. Yogam yunjan mad ashraya. What is ashraya? Ashraya means to take refuge, take shelter. So one who has understood very clearly that I am only an instrument, the real doer is the Lord. And in this whole universe, such a vast, mighty universe, the role that I play is a very small one. And all that happens by grace of the Lord. So who is dependent on the Lord, who doesn't depend on one's own ego, who doesn't depend on people, who doesn't depend on anything else. One who is dependent only on the Lord. So emotionally one loves the Lord. Intellectually one has faith that the Lord alone is the doer and the Lord is always with me. So the person never feels insecure. So the entire faith, security, happiness, love, all that depends on Ishvara, on the Lord. And for the devotee, the Ishvara is not some intangible entity. So here he says, such a person who depends on me, who considers me as the goal of life, and who emotionally also has loved me, and who continues to love me, that person will strive to unite with me. And with all his efforts, Yogam Yunjan, he is trying to unite with me. How will he come to know me is what this chapter is all about. Samagram Mam. Not some parts of the Lord or His glories. How will the devotee become one with the Lord? Because the culmination of love is in devotion. Culmination of love is in oneness, being one with the beloved. So how will the devotee here realize the infinite Lord as one's own self? So he says, Yatha Jnasasi Tachrunu. How will this person know me? That you listen to me now. So this 7th chapter is about this. Second verse. Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshamya sheshataha yajñatva neha bhuyonyat jnatavyam avashishyate. So it says, Jnanam teham savijnanam. I will give you not only the knowledge but also the special ways by which you can experience this in your own heart. Jnanam teham savijnanam. Idam vakshami. I shall tell you now, asheshata, without leaving anything. Yajñatva neha bhuyonyat. Having known this, there is nothing more to be known. Jnatavyam avashishyate. You just see the beauty of this line, second line. That having known this truth or having known the nature of that infinite God, there is nothing more to know. I'll come to that a little later. First, let us finish the first one. Jnanam teham sa vijnanam. I will give you the knowledge plus the experiential way. So Gurudev used to say that what is jnanam? To know that Lord is called jnanam. But to experience that the Lord is me is vijnanam. But how to know that the devotee and the Lord are actually one? That essential oneness is a matter of experience. It cannot be intellectualized, it cannot be shown externally. It is not that physically the person becomes one with Bhagavan, but internally there is a sense of oneness. Just like how all our parts of the body are separate. But yet we say that I pervade this whole body. There is a vision of oneness, that I am all this. In the same way, the devotee feels one with the Lord in the true essential nature. Externally, yes, there is a difference. But internally there is oneness, complete oneness. So he says, Jnanam teham sa vijnanam. And this is the beauty in our culture, that something is not just informed or it is not just left at intellectual level. Okay, jnana. It is made relevant, applicable in one's daily life to transform one's experience. Then that knowledge is beneficial. Even the beginning what we chant, Tejas Vinavadhika Mastu, that may my knowledge be bright and brilliant. Meaning it should come into my actions and transform my life. Now in one place, in our church gate center, we have a autograph of Puja Gurudev, and he has written two beautiful lines there. He said, knowledge can destroy, wisdom alone saves. And he gave his autograph. The knowledge can destroy, because if knowledge remains just intellectual and knowledge is not bringing humility, knowledge is not bringing devotion, it will destroy a person. So many asuras, they also had knowledge. We see today how much atomic power and the knowledge is there, but it is in wrong hands. So then there are a lot of problems with that. So knowledge can destroy, but wisdom alone saves. When that knowledge has become the wisdom, then that saves a person. So I may know so many things about God, but till I don't put that effort to connect, to dissolve the ego, that knowledge doesn't become wisdom. It doesn't save. So he says here, I will give you the knowledge of both. Jnanam is always with a medium. So right now you are listening. So you are using your ears, I am using my mouth, and then through the medium of language and through the medium that is the ears, the sound is going in and the knowledge is being gained. So knowledge is always with a medium, but wisdom is always intuitive. That when I gain the knowledge, I churn it within, I reflect upon it, and I try to bring it into my daily life, and that becomes an intuitive understanding in me. That is what saves. And that's why even if, Vivekananda used to say that take one idea and dedicate yourself fully to it. A person who does that is much, much more evolved than a person who knows hundreds and thousands of ideas and has read books and books after. Because a person has taken that idea, lived it, implemented it, and made it a part of his or her life. That is called wisdom. So Jnanam is using a medium. Vijnanam is immediate, it is intuitive. Jnanam is a lot of things are general. Vijnanam is specific. One goes deep into it. That's why science is also called as Vijnana. So they will go deep into one's aspect. Science itself is vast. In that one part, the scientist will take one field and then go deep into it and find out so many aspects. In the same way here, one is the knowledge of the reality, the other is to actually sit down and connect and go deep within oneself. Then that becomes Vijnana. So if I have both these, and actually both are necessary, one cannot have Vijnana without Jnana. Think about it. Can I have Vijnana just like that? No, I need Jnana to make it into Vijnana. And only Jnana doesn't serve, just remains here. That's why it says Jnanam Teham Savijnanam. I will give you the knowledge plus the intuitive way to experience this. Jnanam Teham Savijnanam. Knowledge can bring arrogance, but intuitive wisdom will only make a person humble. So one may have many degrees, but the person who is having intuitive wisdom may not have those degrees, but will be humble because one has known what is the importance and how to apply and how to transform. So Jnana and Vijnana, they have a lot of significance. Jnanam teham sa vijnanam idam vakshami asheshatah. I will tell this to you without leaving anything. Yad jnatva neha bhuryon yad jnatavyam avashishyate. This last line, second line, is actually the definition of knowledge. Knowledge in the sense, both knowledge and experience. That knowledge must be that gaining which I have nothing more to know. You just think about that state, what these Indians have thought about and what they have come to conclude is so amazing. Our great ancestors and the rishis. If you see, every field by itself is infinite or not. Music itself has so much depth, and one lifetime is not enough to understand the entire music. Like that, every field, geography, math, science, chemistry, physics, arts, every field is infinite. Even many lifetimes are not enough to know one field in its completeness. So whatever I know, even after knowing it, always there is something else to know. Just like in the world outside, whatever I gain, no matter how much I gain, I still have something more to gain. So I still remain unfulfilled. So these great rishis, they thought, is there something knowing which everything is known? Where I become fulfilled. Where the knowledge when I have of that, I don't need anything more. And the purpose of whole evolution becomes fulfilled. Just that question itself, if we appreciate, we will know the depth of their thinking. Answer to it is much more glorious. But a teacher who can even, a student who can even think, this is a question which you will find in the Mundaka Upanishad. The student has gone to the teacher and is asking this question to the teacher, that please tell me, Kasminnu Bhagavo Vijñate Sarvamidam Vijñatam Bhavati. O teacher, tell me that knowing which everything becomes known. I don't want to know one thing, because even after I know all this, I still feel incomplete. So the question is not about knowing many things, the question is about how do I feel the sense of fulfillment in my life. So what is that knowing which everything becomes known? You think if you take some different examples, there may be cup, saucer, pot, pan, pitcher, so many different things. And many different shapes and sizes and different types of articles can be made out of mud. And across the world, if I have to know, it will be so much time which it will take. But if I know the basic substance, which is the mud, then have I not known everything that is made out of it? If I know gold, then I know all types of ornaments made out of it. One may call something as earring and something as bangle, or a bangle which is used as an earring. It doesn't make a difference because now I know everything. Bangle is there, earring is there, necklace is there, anklet is there, whatever is there. Because I know gold. That's the essence. So the great Vedic masters, they said, what is the essence knowing which everything becomes known? Now in the example of pot and gold, it is only limited to that particular object. That I will know pot, I will know mud, then anything made out of mud I will know. But that doesn't mean I will know something made out of copper or brass or silver. So that example has a limitation. Like in music, one says, if I know 7 notes, then I know the whole music. But I still don't know many other things. So what is that knowing which everything becomes known? So I have to go to the cause of everything. That ultimate cause of the entire creation is the Lord. Hence a person who knows that Supreme Lord knows everything and becomes fulfilled. Hence he says, Neha bhoyorya jnatavyam avashishyate. There is nothing more that remains to be known for that person. The person has attained fulfillment in one's life. Any other pursuit we do in our life, however great that pursuit may be, we will still remain incomplete and unfulfilled. So you compare the great masters who have experienced that reality, the fulfillment that they experience, there is nothing which comes anywhere close to it. Even if somebody is greater in their own field, still their sense of limitation remains. So a person who understands this very clearly, that having got a human birth, I can go to the root cause of all these things. And when I know that, and that root cause is infinite, and hence that is the only way to dissolve my sense of incompleteness. When I know that which is infinite. Because anything I know which is finite, or anything I achieve which is finite, is not going to remove my sense of limitation and finitude. And we all seek that which is infinite. No, Swamiji, I don't seek anything which is infinite. I don't know only there is something called infinite. Consciously or unconsciously, we all seek the same thing. Just the words may be different, understanding may be different. We all want to be happy at all times. We all want to live at all times. We all want knowledge. We don't want to be ignorant. So many aspects are there like that, which all of us seek. But we just don't know that is the nature of infinity. The moment we say infinity, something very weird comes into the mind, or we think something is blank. So we say, no, I am not seeking that. I am seeking promotion, I am seeking job, I am seeking some wealth, I am seeking some... Whatever I am seeking, ultimately what I am seeking really is freedom from all sense of limitation. I am not actually seeking desire fulfillment. So a person who understands this, the single-minded focus will be on knowing that, knowing which nothing remains to be known. And that is not an object to be known, that is such a unique quest to dissolve the very knower in me. The ego must go away in me. Then that person wakes up. Yes, there is that absolute truth which is my nature, and I am fulfilled. And such people, if they put their mind into anything, they will know whatever they need to know in that field. So Vedanta, in the Upanishad, same Mundaka Upanishad, it says that such a person becomes Sarvajna and Sarvavit. Person becomes omniscient, and if the person wants, can understand anything in its complete depth. If the person puts the mind into geography, one will know everything about it. You know, Ramana Maharshi never learnt Sanskrit language, never learnt Tamil language. At 16 years, he left his home in search of the Supreme Truth. He had an experience of death. where he felt that he is going to die, and he said, let me see what happens at the time of death. So he lay down on the first floor of his house and he said, I am going to watch. And he saw that body is dead, but I am not. I am still feeling the presence of my own personality so strongly. That means I am not this body. He said, if I am not the body, then who am I? I want to know who am I. So he stayed for a few days in his house, but this quest was very, very deep in him. So one day, the fees which was given to him for going to school, he took that money of the fees, took a ticket, went to Tiruvannamalai. He took a train, went to Tiruvannamalai. And when he went there, he went to the temple of Lord Shiva, Arunachala. He threw away all the balance money that he had and he surrendered there, saying, Father of the universe, I have come, please accept me. Now he lived there, he went to the tank, shaved off his head, had a, removed all the hair, removed all the clothes, just had a kaupina. He lived for 11 years in complete silence, going deep and deep within, doing this who am I inquiry. So he has not learnt Sanskrit, he has not learnt Tamil, he has not studied the Veda properly. But what all compositions he used to do when he became enlightened master? He would compose in Tamil, he would compose in Sanskrit. That's just one example of what we call a sarvavid. If that person wants to put the mind to something, that person will know everything. So he says, having known this, nothing remains to be known for that person. It is not in terms of knowing many things. It is in terms of fulfillment. That here a person experiences complete fulfillment. And how will that person know that, experience that? Only when the ego dissolves and a person knows one's own reality, one's own nature as infinite. So a devotee who becomes one with God, that devotee, that's why we say in the language of devotion that God realization is the purpose of human life. In language of knowledge we say self-realization is the purpose of human life. Both are one and the same. So who understands this, that person will seek this as the top priority in life, and that's the only priority in life, really speaking. To know who am I. Hence in the next verse he says that very few people even seek this. This is one of the very famous verses of the Gita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam Kaschin mam vetti tattvataha. So here he says, Manushyanam sahasreshu, in thousands of human beings, Kaschid yatati siddhaye, some rare individual even wants to attain this state of infinity. Yatatam api siddhanam, even in those few rare ones, Kaschin mam veti tattvata, some rarer than the rarest individual wakes up to this nature of the reality. So this verse is not to discourage us कि ओहो हमारा तो नंबर लगेगा ही नहीं, पता नहीं कब लगेगा. We thought that in the world all this is there कि admission के लिए इतना अपना को line लगाना पड़ता है, and exclusivities. At least here it should be free for all, but यहाँ पर भी इतना qualification, पता नहीं हमारा नंबर कब लगेगा. And in India there is so much population. पता नहीं where my number may be 6 billion लोगों में मेरा number कहाँ पर है, I don't know. It is not like that. It is not to discourage me. It is to make me aware of how blessed I am. You just think about it. Of the 7 billion people who are there in the world, how many people even get exposed to Vedanta? We are few lucky people. There may be many more who are exposed, but considering the entire world's population, the number who has got exposed to Vedanta is so less. So Manushyanam Sahasreshu, in thousands of human beings. Now the word Manushya is very nice. There are two different meanings of Manushya. Manushya means, it comes from the word Man. So Manasa Sivyati iti Manushya. One who creates through the mind is called as a Manushya, a human being. All creations in the world outside, all advancement in different fields has happened because human being can think, Manasa Sivyati. And it is also true that not only human being creates many beautiful things externally, but bondage also is created by human mind only. When the mind doesn't know the true self, the mind feels I am limited, I am this entity, I am born, I am this body, this world is separate from me. So bondage also is created by mind only. So that is one meaning of Manushya. So the important understanding of that is that I am a human being and with my Purushartha I can create. I can live my life in such a way that I can experience that oneness. I should create my life, I should unfold my life in pursuit of that reality. Because that is what we all want. Why go through it indirectly? Seek that directly. No matter where I am, it doesn't mean I have to leave everything and go away. I may be in my work, I may be in my family, I stay there, but my priority is very clear that I must seek that Supreme. To do an MBA or to get some qualification or to do some profession, does one have to leave everything? It is first an attitudinal shift, no, that I am a student. So now I am pursuing this MBA and then I want to do CA and then I want to do PhD and then I want to do this. That's an attitude here. And then that makes the person seek that. So same way, if I have the attitude that I am a seeker, and whether I know it or not, I am a seeker. Some people seek it directly and consciously, the rest of them are seeking indirectly and unconsciously, but we all are seekers. There is no difference at all. So faster I know it, the better it is and more directly I will seek. That if happiness and absolute fulfillment is what we seek, why go roundabout? I may still do my work, I may still be with my family, but I know deep within that I am a seeker of happiness. I am a seeker of peace. So Manushyanam Sahasreshu, in thousands of people, very few seek this. Kaschid yatati siddhaya. Why is that? Because first and foremost, not many are even aware of what we are seeking. It just seems to us that we are seeking some job, some education, some money, some power, some achievement. So majority doesn't even know the answer to the basic question, that what do I really seek in my life? From where to get it, how to get it, is not known. Suppose somebody knows it also. Not everybody who knows this starts seeking this, because it may not be explained very well. One may not be able to identify with it. Now, even if it is explained extremely well, I may have fears. So I don't shift my identity to being a seeker. That I am a seeker, I am a sadhak, that identity doesn't come to me so fast. Until that identity doesn't come, that I am a seeker, my seeking doesn't even get intensity. It is very, what we say, weak. Somehow it is going on, something is happening. The intensity is not there. Why? Because there is some fear that if I become a seeker, then what will happen to my family? Who will take care of them? I may become disinterested in the world. Many different fears are there. I will have to live in self-control. But that's another problem there. But Vedanta says happiness is your nature, so turn within. So turn within means drop all your attachments. That I can't. Attachment is what makes me alive. If I drop attachment, life will be boring. I should be attached. No, but attachment gives you sorrow. It's okay. It's okay. At least I am experiencing some excitement. No? I'll pay the price of sorrow, but I'll let me be attached. Because I don't know if I drop that attachment, what will happen. Some fear is there of the unknown. Because that word attachment means love for me. And so I think that if I become a detached, I will not be able to love, I will lose all interest in life, I will lose all enthusiasm for life. So for me the word detachment means disinterest, unenthusiastic living, dull, boring life, loveless life. So I say no, I can't be a seeker. ये मेरे बस की बात नहीं है. Actually it is the other way. Every seeker wonders कि अरे बाप रे, ये मेरे बस की बात नहीं है. Why are we going indirectly? Go directly. Why unnecessarily stay stuck and suffer? But each one thinks like that of the other person. So anyway, so even if I know, I am explained and I intellectually understood, my heart doesn't want to let go of its attachment because it derives its identity from there. Suppose I say I am ready to let go of attachment also. Still there will be difficulty. Because the truth by itself is subtle, beyond physical perception, beyond feeling, beyond thinking. And I know only these three methods of knowledge. Either I see at the physical level, or I feel something, or I think about something. Now infinity is beyond all the three. So I have to train my equipment to come together and I have to transcend that. Again, very difficult. Hence, these are different obstacles which are there, these are different difficulties which are there. That's why he says very, very few people, even if I decide to seek that truth, my own past temptations and vasanas will come up. Every time I sit to meditate on that absolute infinite reality, Nirgun, Nirakar, Avikari, Avinashi, the mind brings pizza, burger, gulab jamun, something in the mind. So again the mind gets distracted. So my own past vasanas, they come up. Memories, they will come up. If I say no, it's okay, I will go through all these. I have Shraddha. And one says, surrender to the Lord. Again there, I have to surrender the ego. To give up the ego is the most difficult thing. How will I do that? Surrender to the Lord or surrender to the Guru, very tough. So different reasons are there because of which, though this knowledge is available to, even if it is available to few people, not everybody is able to even realize that. Why the Lord is saying all this? One is to make a person understand the different stages in evolution, so that if I have become a seeker now, what should I become aware of? What is the next step? That my mind should learn to turn within, I should learn to drop the attachment, I should have more faith, surrender to the Lord, different stages. And each stage I have to pass through. So this great master Akhandanandji, he writes very nicely that in the beginning a person is only what we say, Vishayi, means a person is enjoying. Slowly by some grace of the Lord, the person comes to satsang and starts understanding higher way of living. Then that Vishayi person becomes a Shrota, starts understanding the science of spirituality. So becomes a listener, comes regularly to classes. Then there are many who come regularly to classes. Gurudev used to say some people become professional listeners. Their profession is to listen. To what? Vedanta. So any speaker who is there in the town, they will be there. 100% attendance. Any talk on Vedanta, I will be there. Or Bhakti, whatever it is. Keep on listening. I mean, many people do that in the beginning to find out where do I belong. So one may go to many places, but ultimately one has to stick to one. How much can one keep jumping? Gurudev used to say, don't do guru shopping. This is not a departmental store that gurus are available. Here is this guru, this price, this is another guru, this is the price. No, don't do guru shopping. You find where you belong and just stick there. This is not like a product saying, okay, today I am using Hammam and tomorrow I will use Lux and day after tomorrow I will use some Synthol. No, stick to one. So if one sticks to one, then from a Shrota, slowly one becomes a Sadhak. That I am a seeker. And I have understood that happiness which I seek outside, love that I seek outside, peace that I seek outside is all my nature. So from a Vishayi to a Shrota. Shrota to a Sadhak. From Sadhak, I can become a Shishya. That I am ready to surrender. I am available to surrender now. Then I understood the importance of surrender. I understood that that's the only method to realize the truth is to drop the ego. There is no other way to know the truth. It is not some object to be known from outside. It is me. But I've identified falsely with my equipment, so I feel I am this entity and I am limiting myself. So I have to drop that. So from a sadhak one becomes a shishya. You see in Arjun's case also, he was there with Bhagavan throughout. But he did not become a sadhak. In the Gita, when he came, in the Mahabharata battlefield, when he came there and then he suddenly felt completely overwhelmed and unable to control his personality and he collapsed completely there. Then he said, he threw away bow and arrow and everything, and till then he was facing the army of the Kauravas. And the Lord is in front of him and he is behind here. Then he comes down, sits at the feet of the Lord, facing his back towards the Kaurava army, facing the Lord. That is called a sadhak. Who has understood that the happiness which I seek is not outside, so let me turn within. So he comes and sits down. But that is not over. Still he has a lot of mental agitations and he is crying, he is despondent and he doesn't want to fight. Finally from sadhak he becomes a shishya, where he tells Bhagavan, Shishya steham, I am your shishya, please instruct me how to get out of this delusion now. So from Vishayi to Shrota, Shrota to Sadhak, Sadhak to Shishya. And from that Shishya, a person becomes Mumukshu. That I want liberation and liberation alone. Nothing else I want. Because the Vairagya is very strong now. One is very clearly convinced that there is no happiness in the world outside. In the earlier stages there is some doubt. Maybe there is something. India, I have been only in India, I have never gone abroad. Maybe there must be some notion one has. I have not eaten this type of food, I have not gone to this type of place, I have not experienced skydiving, skydiving. Okay. One has done all these things when one understands that nothing is there in it. It has its relevance, it has its temporary benefit, no doubt, but what I am seeking is not there in any of this. That person becomes Tivra Mumukshu, saying, I want only moksha. That Mumukshu then gets the knowledge and becomes a Siddha. So that's how he says here that yatatam api siddhanam, those who are striving to attain that state of fulfillment, even in that very few people attain it. Why? Because of all these difficulties. That one doesn't move along in the stages. And what pulls a person back is one's own temptations, one's own attachments, one's own past tendencies. Three main obstacles. They pull the person back. So he says here that, O Arjun, feel that you are blessed, that you are getting this knowledge. Now move ahead and intensify your seeking. Don't postpone it saying कि पता नहीं कब मिलेगा, so ये जन्म में नहीं होगा. No, in this life, here and now. And see the compassion of Bhagavan. That Bhagavan showed Vishwarup Darshan even to a person like Duryodhan and Dhritarashtra, who did not even have the desire. So it is only a question of how much we are able to put in our effort to overcome our limitations. It is not that the vision of the Lord is veiled from us by Bhagavan. Bhagavan doesn't do anything like that. We are ourselves covering our eyes and saying ki I can't see, where is the Lord, who is the Lord. We have to just open it. Remove the physical, get over the physical temptations, get over the mental attachments, get over the intellectual confusions and memories of the past. The truth is here and now. So, having said this, it is only to make a person realize the blessedness here. If one feels that no, I am not making any much progress in this path, it's only because I am not feeling the improvement. That one should not give up the effort for it. And a very nice example given for that is milk when it is there and you put a little bit of curd in it and leave it overnight. It appears that nothing is happening, but a lot of things are happening inside. And by morning, that milk will become curd. So a seeker must continuously put the efforts with that enthusiasm that I have got this human birth, I have been blessed by this knowledge, I have been able to come to the Bhagavad Gita, the grace of the Lord is there with me. That the very fact that this knowledge I have been introduced to means that there is the grace of the Lord. And consistently I have been able to seek. All this shows the grace of the Lord. Now I only have to push harder and keep going ahead. Now these three verses have been the introduction, the 7th chapter, where he says that this knowledge is so unique, so complete in itself, and very few people get it, Arjuna, and that is the knowledge you are going to get now. What is that knowledge? How one will experience that Lord, that we will take up tomorrow. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari